Alrighty guys, it is Qaaman here today, and I'm bringing you another Dragon Ball Super episode review of episode 53, which is called Reveal Black's True Identity, off to the Kai realm of Universe 10. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into this video, and let me make a quick announcement to say that from now on I'm going to start doing my Dragon Ball Super reviews on Tuesdays. That way I can get the actual translations in a much more effective manner, and I could actually put a lot more time into making my episode reviews a lot more accurate and a lot more in-depth. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into this video. Let's start off with the plot. Now, I will say that Dragon Ball Super episode 53 had a very mysterious-esque plot. Goku goes off with Beerus to find Zamasu, who has a very similar key to Black, and during this investigation, Goku actually challenges Zamasu, who obviously was showing something interesting towards Beerus and Whis, and in this, Goku actually tries to fight Zamasu, but he only uses his Super Saiyan 2 form, which actually proves more than enough to actually defeat Zamasu. In contrast, we also see during this episode that Trunks is becoming a lot more acquainted with the other characters once again, as we see him meeting Android 18 and Marin for the first time. And as they always like to slide in a little bit of a plot element, we also got the chance to see the Pilaf gang trying to ship Trunks and Mai, which added a lot of humor towards the episode itself. But the true highlight of this plot to me is the fact that not only does Zamasu have a similar key to Black Goku, he actually is very questionable about the human race, which foreshadows Black Goku's hatreds of humans in the future, which I think is a fantastic plot twist that this episode did. Moving on to the actual action sequences, I thought that the fight was pretty interesting between Goku and Zamasu. However, the one little nitpick I had is it obviously lacked a lot of tension like other fights, because Goku just went straight into his Super Saiyan 2 form, and we already know from this point on that whenever Goku fights in his Super Saiyan 1, 2, or even 3 form, he's kind of just testing to see how strong his opponent actually is, and his opponents don't realize that he has so many depths to his power that he's not actually showing. And I think that took away a little bit away from the fight itself. But nonetheless, I think the actual animation for the fight was pretty decent, and it didn't really have any problems. And in terms of the animation for the other parts of the episode, I thought it was pretty decent, but the only small nitpick was that there was a weird point of the episode where Goku met Zamasu and Gowasu, and I actually thought that it was kind of weird how they drew Goku's face in one of the actual artwork sequences. Now, let's discuss some interesting details. The first interesting detail is the fact that Goku mentions that Zamasu is a lot stronger than the Supreme Kai of Universe 7. When Goku mentions that Zamasu is weaker than the Supreme Kai, you have to wonder if Zamasu ever had to face a Majin Buu-esque type of villain in this universe, or any villain to any degree similar to Majin Buu. And I always found that was kind of interesting, because for Zamasu to be a lot stronger than the Supreme Kai of Time, that could either just be his natural power, or that could also be based off of what the Supreme Kai had to face versus what Zamasu potentially had to face, which could have made him even stronger. And I think that's very interesting. The other detail I wanted to talk about is the fact that Zamasu had all of the time rings intact, but I really think that that's an irrelevant point for a lot of people pointing this out on Twitter, because of the fact that because Black Goku comes from the future time that Future Trunks obviously comes from, that kind of makes it irrelevant for the fact that Zamasu would have had all of those rings at this current point in time. And the third interesting thing that I wanted to point out is the fact that Gowasu is actually very similar to the old Kai. However, in this universe, it seems that no one really placed him in a Z-Sword like Beerus did to old Kai, even though there's a lot of plot holes with that, because of the fact that the Sakio Jump mentioned that he was trapped in the Z-Sword by a person not as strong as Majin Buu, which obviously would contradict with Beerus, and obviously because of the fact that that would have taken place beforehand. And moving on to the most memorable moment of this episode for me, I would have to say it was when Trunks actually met Android 18. I always like those little slice of life moments where you as a viewer always kind of wonder how certain characters would interact, and obviously because of the fact that Trunks grew up in a time where the androids were terrorizing his world, it made it kind of interesting to see him having a very playful moment with Android 18, and to see her acting kind of happy to see him, whereas that would be the polar opposite in Trunks' time, and I thought that that was a great moment for the viewers to see. So overall, I think that this was a very solid episode, and it contained a lot of curious plots for the future, and I think this really sets up the plot for Dragon Ball Super, so I'm gonna have to give this episode 4 stars. But in terms of predictions for this episode, I find it interesting that in a recent Q&A that I posted, I discussed whether or not Trunks will learn how to use God Ki, and considering the fact that we are seeing in the upcoming episode preview that Vegeta is training with Trunks, especially as a Super Saiyan Blue, I predict that Trunks will at least get a small sense of what it's like to use God Ki. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode review and predictions, and please stay tuned for my next week review of Dragon Ball Super. So with that said, please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. And remember, as I always say, to have a great day, guys.